You've just found the Montana Outdoor Podcast. Here, you'll discover the people and places that make Montana like no other place in the world. If you love to fish, hunt, or just enjoy creating your own adventure in the outdoors, you have come to the right place. The Montana Outdoor Podcast is brought to you by Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer, home of Boss Snowplows and Accessories, and Diamond Sea Trailers and Accessories. Go to rmtte.com and see everything they have waiting for you online, or just come by 5680 Expressway in Missoula, and by Superior Hardwoods of Montana, delivering the highest quality lumber, paneling, flooring, and reclaimed wood products anywhere in North America. Let them guide you through the woods at their showroom in Missoula on Highway 93 South or at superior-hardwoods.com. Now, let's go discover Montana's great outdoors with your host, Downrigger Dale. Have a great show, buddy. Can't wait to hear it.
Thank you very much, Roger. And as Roger just said, I am Downrigger Dale with the Montana Outdoor Podcast. My goodness, folks, we have been having so many great guests here lately, and the dang podcast's exploding, folks, and I can't thank you enough. We've just grown so much in audience these days and that, so can't thank you enough. Before we get started, as I usually do, I want to welcome a couple groups that have been with us from the very beginning. First is all our folks out there serving us in the great military. We are so honored that on bases all around the world, so many of you watch this podcast, and that is a big honor for us. We can't thank you enough for your service. So all you active military out there, be safe. Thank you for watching, and I hope this podcast brings a little bit of home back to you wherever you are. And of course, Montana per capita has more veterans than any other state in America, so we want to thank all our veterans that also tune in here, and thank you very much for your service. Now, another thing my promotional staff always has to get on me about is I got to talk all their lingo, which is be sure and share, like, and subscribe to the podcast. That helps us a great deal. So please do that. And don't forget, you're welcome to comment. We do get a few comments. A lot of you are a little shy. You like to email me personally, which is fine. But, get in the discussion if you'd like. You're welcome to do that. All right. Now, here's something we're going to talk about today that is very timely. I've gotten so many emails from you. Thank you for your emails. But you're asking about, hey, what's going on here? The water is not hard. It's still regular water. So we're going to find out a little bit about, when we might be getting some colder temperatures. Another thing a lot of you asked about was snowpack. And, we're going to hopefully answer that a little too. A little good news there. But Johnna Infanti is with us. She is with the National Weather Service. And you might remember Matt Rosencrantz has come on a few times. Usually about once a year, he comes on and kind of helps us out with figuring out, what's that long-term forecast looking? Johnna's jumping in there this year and talking about it. So let's first start. Johnna, welcome to the podcast, by the way. Thank you for doing this. I know you guys are busy over there. You're based in Maryland, right?
Yep, I'm based in Maryland.
And Johnna, why don't you tell us a bit about what you do at NOAA and kind of your background, how you got into the crazy weather business and all that.
Sure. Yeah. So, hey, everyone. It's really great to be on this podcast. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to talk about some of the longer term outlooks. So I'm actually originally from New Hampshire, so really I'm interested in snow as well. And then I moved to Miami for grad school where I studied seasonal climate prediction. So lots of different weather extremes. And now I'm in Maryland and I work for the Climate Prediction Center. So I'm one of the meteorologists in our operational prediction branch, and I'm part of the group that produces the forecasts for weeks 3, 4, monthly, and seasonal timeframes. And the reason that I got into this was actually because of the El Nino Southern Oscillation, which we're going to talk a bit about more later, because I just thought it was one of the coolest things ever. So really happy to be able to talk about all of this with everyone.
Great. Yeah, that affects us big time. And you are a PhD as well. Should I be calling you doctor? Do you want to be called doctor, or does it matter?
No, that's okay. Well, it sounds really weird sometimes.
You're the smartest person we've had on this podcast, I'll tell you that. Most of us are out we're just good old fashioned hunters and fishermen and all that stuff. But yeah, so let's get into talking a bit about this. This is weather is a huge deal in Montana. I guess it is in every state, but tends to be real big for us because we're a very strong agricultural state. Plus, we're outdoor freaks. We love the outdoors in Montana, so weather depends on it quite a bit. So, one of the things that I had heard that you work on is what's called the seasonal outlook, and we're going to hear more about that. But what is that? What is the seasonal outlook? What does that report consist of?
The seasonal outlooks, we release a seasonal outlook every month, and that is going to give you a forecast for temperature and precipitation over the US, and it's probabilistic, and it's going to show you for 3-month chunks of the upcoming
Mhm.
year. So starting this month, it would be February, March, April, May, April, May, June, out to 12 months from
Oh,
now. And what we'd be looking at in those forecasts is the probability that temperatures or precipitation over the US are going to be or could be above or below normal. And we also have a monthly outlook that comes out each month, twice a month, which we'll be talking about
mhm.
as well. And that's very similar. So that'll be for next month, so for February. Um, and we will release an update to that at the end of the month. And that also shows the forecast for if the temperature or precipitation can be above or below
Mhm.
normal for the upcoming
And
month.
are those things that are pretty easy to find on the National Weather Service website?
I can actually show you if
Sure.
you'd
Yeah.
like. Let me just hop over to share my
Yeah.
screen here.
And I'll also put a
So if you
link in the podcast description so folks will be able to use that too. Okay. Yeah, I see it.
Yep. All right, so this is the Climate Prediction Center website. So if you just visit cpc.nsep.noaa.gov, you can find all of our forecasts. So if you take a look at the header here, you can see we do everything from 6 to 10 day to 8 to
Oh,
14
cool.
day. We also have a hazards outlook, which will show you for the week 2 period or 8 to 14 day period, the possibilities of heavy rainfall, um, snow, winds, much above or below normal temperatures, and things like that. And then if you look at these 1-month outlook and 3-month outlook links, you can get right to these longer term forecasts.
Now, are you able
So
to
if you click
are
right
you
on
able
there,
to zero in on a specific state, or is it all just kind of a national thing?
I
Oh,
can. So we have this cool feature, which is the interactive map. And on the interactive map, you can zoom right in
oh,
to a
gotcha.
specific state
Yeah.
right here. And let me turn up that opacity a tiny bit so you can see. And you can even type in any city that you want. So
Wow.
give me a city.
Let's go with we'll go with Billings. That's the largest city in Montana. So let's just look at that for a second. Oh, there it is. Mhm.
That'll zoom right in, and you can see the forecast for that particular city. So what this will give you is the precipitation and temperature probabilities for above normal, below normal, or near normal for that particular city. So in this case, we have, I believe that says 37% chances of below normal temperatures and 42% chances of above normal precipitation for Billings. And it also gives you some information about the city as
Mhm.
well. So you can see the normal minimum temperature and the normal maximum temperature as well as the normal precipitation.
Wow, that is really cool. So I did not know about this area on the site. That's great. Well, I will put a link to this in our podcast description. So for those of you that are watching, or some of you like to listen in the car, which is fine, you just go back when you're obviously not driving and look at the podcast description. You'll see a bunch of different links in there, and so I'll have that in there so you can find it. Then you can save it and use that, because that's some great information. Now, when we had Matt Rosencrantz on here last year, if my memory serves me correctly, he had said that it was likely we could experience a La Nina weather pattern this winter. Now, I assume that is what's been going on here in Montana. Am I right about that, or can you tell us a
Yes.
little bit about La Nina, what that is, and what it's is that what's giving us this unseasonably warm weather that we're getting?
Yes, I definitely
Okay.
can. So we'll start with we are experiencing La Nina conditions right now. But to answer your question about the unseasonably warm temperatures, the short answer to that is
Oh,
actually no. With a La Nina for your region, we would typically expect cooler temperatures. But the answer is much more complex because nothing is ever really simple in
right.
nature, of course. So let's start with what La Nina actually is. And I think
Yeah.
that would be a good place to start. So what La Nina is it's part of something that we call the El Nino Southern Oscillation, or we call that ENSO for short, so we don't have to say that really long string of words every single time we write this, which is a lot. And what that is a climate fluctuation that occurs across the equatorial Pacific Ocean. And I'll show you a really quick image here that I think will be helpful to illustrate. So there's two phases of the El Nino. Well, really three. There's a neutral phase, but the two phases that we look at a lot are the two phases called El Nino and La Nina. So an El Nino, and this is just an example of a strong El Nino. This was done in 1997. And these are the SST anomalies. So the deviation from normal SSTs during an El Nino event. You can see they're warmer than average. And then this top figure is during a La Nina. And this is the deviation of the SSTs from normal during a La Nina. And you can see those are colder than normal.
Yeah. Okay.
So that seems really far away from the US, but the really cool and interesting thing about ENSO is that these phases can impact temperature and precipitation patterns across the globe, and that includes the US. So what can happen is when we get those differences in the sea surface temperatures, even though they're far away, that causes changes in the winds and atmosphere above the equatorial Pacific, which then impacts the position of the jet streams across the globe. So this is what I'm showing now is an example of what happens during a typical La Nina.
Yeah.
So what typically happens then is you get high pressure just below Alaska and in the northern Pacific. And what that does is it makes the position of the jet stream shift northward and then dip further into the United States. And what that can do is allow for cooler air from northern parts of the globe to drop into the northern parts of the US. So that is something that would happen during a typical La Nina.
Okay.
So knowing all of that, and knowing some of the background for ENSO and La Nina, you would think, okay, great. So La Nina winter, that means it's going to be cooler temperatures over the northern US,
Well,
right? That's what the diagram shows. That's what I just said. But like I said earlier, nothing's ever simple in nature.
right.
So we can take a look at a bunch of past La Nina events and kind of mush them all together and get this picture of what a typical La Nina is and how it might impact the US. But individual La Nina events can still have a lot of variability. They can be weaker or stronger or short-lived or long-lived. The position of those cooler SSTs might be shifted. Basically, each La Nina or El Nino is similar but different. And what that means is that we can also see some variation in the typical impacts.
Right, because what we're seeing
So
here is what's the typical. That's not what we've been experiencing.
Exactly. Right. So what we would have expected for during a La Nina is that we had those cooler temperatures. But typically what we say is that El Nino or La Nina can really tilt the odds towards certain conditions, but doesn't guarantee those certain conditions. So for the unseasonably warm temperatures, attribution and why something's happening is always a really difficult question. But there's a few reasons why I think the temperatures have been warmer than average over the northern parts of the US where we typically would see cooler temperatures during La Nina. So the first reason is the actual start of the La Nina occurred during this winter and it strengthened during December. And when you get a La Nina, it's not like a switch flips over the US and you immediately get impacts. It can take a little time for things to catch up. And then you may start seeing impacts a little bit later. And overall, this has been a weak La Nina. So if you put those together, you can get some shaky impacts that might not look how we expect. So we did see colder temperatures over the US in December, but they were actually shifted more towards the east. So this is a good image to show. And you can see this looks a lot like this pattern, but a bit more shifted. And you can see that those cooler temperatures actually were more over New England and the Great Lakes rather than where we would see them during a typical La Nina. And the reason for that is because we did have some variation in some of these highs and lows and where they were over the US. And so we did see some cooler temperatures. They were just a bit misplaced from what we would see during a typical La Nina.
I don't know if
so that led to having warmer temperatures.
if you can see my mouse, but I'm kind of going across. Maybe you can put it up there. You can see where that blue is. Yeah. And there you go. And so where Montana is, it basically missed us then. It kind of went around us a little
bit.
Yep. Okay. And this was when? December.
This is the December 2025. So the entire month of December, the temperatures, and this is a pressure pattern. So this is blue shading would be a low pressure and the red shading would be high pressure.
Yeah. So in December, that makes sense. In eastern Montana, it was a little bit cooler than we had over in the west side. So what that takes us to then, just so I following along here. So here's where, things are getting even more strange for us. And this was the part that we talked about this on our live show last Saturday, that not seeing hardly any snow on the ground makes all of us outdoor folks pretty dang nervous because, automatically we assume, oh, no, we're going to have low water levels in our rivers and reservoirs and lakes. And, that's not good for fishing and irrigating crops. So I went and checked on the snowpacks for, kind of looking from west to east. Now, of course, as we go east, it gets pretty flat over there. Not a lot of, mountain type snowpack, but the snowpacks in the west, especially on the eastern side of the Great Divide, that's where that water's still going to flow that way. And what I saw that amazed me was we're actually at normal or mostly above normal on snowpack, which was wonderful news. Is La Nina responsible for giving us all that wonderful moisture then up in that snowpack?
Yes and no. So you're right. The snowpack accumulation in Montana has had a really big contrast this year. So what you're seeing is a lot more snowpack over the higher elevations with a lot less in the lower elevations. So you are getting a lot of moisture. If you were to take a look at a similar picture to what I just showed you for temperature, there was above normal precipitation, but you did have above normal temperatures as well. So, there was still some moisture coming in, and I believe some of that moisture was coming in from the western US and getting into Montana. So you're having some above normal precipitation. But what happened here is because you are seeing some of those above normal temperatures, you need two things to get snow. You need low enough temperatures and you need the moisture. So you're missing one part of the recipe in the lower elevations. You're missing the cooler
Mhm.
temperatures that would be there to be able to make snow. At the higher elevations, even though the entire state, which you saw in the picture that I just showed you, was above normal in the mountains of Montana and at higher elevations is still pretty
Yeah.
cold. So you're still getting one of those pieces of the recipe to get snow. So in brief, kind of La Nina, but in a different way. Like I said earlier, we were seeing some shift in the way that the height pattern and the pressure systems are during this La Nina. So you're still getting moisture coming in, but I think it's coming from more of a different source than the La
Mhm.
Nina.
Yeah, we heard talk of this atmospheric river that was, hitting
Yep,
California and all that. So I think we must have been getting part of that, I would think.
I
Okay.
believe so. Yeah.
Okay. Uh, so a little good news there. Um, we're going to take just a quick break here, but when we come back, I want to get into this seasonal outlook because this is the big reveal, I think, that is going to help really show us where we're going and hopefully answer a lot of these email questions. So we're going to do that right after this. I want to take a minute to thank Superior Hardwoods of Montana for their support of this podcast. It is what allows us to bring you the latest from Montana's great outdoors, with very few interruptions, by the way. That said, there is another reason we are lucky to have Superior Hardwoods of Montana on board. They are an amazing business that can offer all of you some of the most incredible wood products you have ever seen. Plus, Superior Hardwoods of Montana is still a place that actually cares about and appreciates their customers, the same way we appreciate you, our viewers and listeners. They offer you something original and totally unique, like their 11 acres of wood wall paneling, flooring, trim, beams, slabs, well, you name it. Every single piece has a story behind it. Wood from old barns, historic homesteads, even historic factories. And that amazing wood can be part of your story too. Right there in your home can be a piece of American history, brought back to life, custom milled and refinished to your specifications. So it not only tells its original story, but also speaks to who you are and how special your home is. Superior Hardwoods also has exotic woods, live edge slabs, pre-finished and unfinished flooring too, all in stock and ready to go. Need help picking out the right material? Just ask. Their team has been doing this since 1977. They know how to guide you through the woods. Swing into their beautiful showroom at 5120 Highway 93 South in Missoula, or you can just check them out online at superior-hardwoods.com. That's Superior Hardwoods of Montana, local, knowledgeable, family run, and ready to help you build something that lasts. Let them guide you through the woods at superior-hardwoods.com. Superior Hardwoods of Montana. Go see. Back here on the Montana Outdoor Podcast, and Johnna Infanti is my guest. She is with NOAA. She has been giving us a wonderful education on La Nina and all the great stuff there. This is definitely in your wheelhouse. You've studied this. You know this stuff inside and out. It is fascinating in that what we've been experiencing, if I'm understanding this right, then our La Nina that Matt had talked about last year or it was late last year. It is a weaker La Nina, so that's giving us these kind of variations where normally we'd get cold temps and moisture. We're getting moisture, but not necessarily cold, except up in the, as I call it, up in the high lonesomes up there. So, okay. So now let's go with what is our seasonal outlooks looking like? And hopefully you can kind of go from, you know, current stuff going through next month and then maybe stretch it out and go long term with us. So do your magic. Tell us what we got.
Sure, I will do that. And I get really excited about ENSO and La Niña and El Nino. So always really fun to talk about that. So what I'm showing here is the monthly temperature and precipitation outlooks, and these are outlooks that we release
Okay.
every month, twice a month. We release one towards the middle of the month, and then we also release one on the final day of the month. So the last day of January, we'll release an update to this. So if you are interested in the February outlook and you want to see something updated, you should check that out towards the end of the month. So let's take a look at Montana. If you take a look at the left-hand image here, that's the monthly temperature outlook. And what the blue shading shows is the probability or the likelihood or the chances that the month of February as a whole will see average temperatures that are below normal.
Oh,
And then if you look at the image on the right, that's the monthly precipitation outlook. And that is the probability or chance or likelihood that the precipitation accumulation for the month of February will be above normal.
I'm liking what I'm seeing here. So now we're talking. Gonna get into, if I understand this, some below normal temperatures for February. It looks like maybe that's going to happen more so on the eastern side of the state, central to eastern. Is that what I'm seeing here? And
Yeah,
then,
yeah.
but we're going to
Okay.
have above normal precipitation. So
Yes, that's what we're forecasting for February now. So in terms of probabilities, the lightest shading on here is labeled as 33 to 40% chances. And then the next level up is 40 to 50% chances. And then it goes up from there. And if you note in these scales on the bottom, the probabilities go all the way from 33 to 40 to 90 to 100. So for the temperatures and precipitation, what this is showing is essentially our confidence level in the forecast, which is based off of all of our available tools and what we're looking at for the upcoming month or season. And you can see that parts of Montana, we do have some of those lower probability levels, which are 33 to 40. And other parts of Montana, we are a little bit more confident that temperatures could be below normal. And then for precipitation, actually, we're a bit more confident than temperatures. And we have much of the middle parts of the state, roughly, as falling into that 50 to 60% chances of above normal
So
precipitation.
for our ice fishermen out there, you look at this, Fort Peck, which is way over in the northeast side of the state, and is a huge ice fishing mecca for a lot of us. That's looking really good. Some of your western and southwestern, you're not quite as likely. I mean, your confidence level isn't quite as high, but still, we're going to experience some lower temperatures, looks like. And a lot of those ice fishing tournaments that we've talked about that got postponed, they got moved into February. So this could be a good situation. Not guaranteed, of course, but looking good.
Yeah, I think it's looking good. And if you notice my language when I'm talking about these outlooks, I'm saying things like above or below normal. And you might be wondering, well, what does that mean? And that's a term that we define. So to find what is normal for a state or region or location, what we do is we look at the past 30 years of weather to see what a typical month or season looks like in that specific location. So, for example, over Montana, we would take a look at all of the Januaries from 1991 to 2020. And we would see what the temperature all of the Februaries from 1991 to 2020. And we would look at what the temperature was for that month. And obviously, within that record, we can have colder years, we can have warmer years, we can have years that are more towards the middle. And we put all of that information together to give us an approximation of what the typical temperature or precipitation is for that state. So all of this is based on what that average value or the normal is. So for Montana, this is going to depend a lot on where in the state we're looking. It's a very big state. There's higher elevations. We already talked about that a little bit when we were talking about higher elevation
Right.
snow. So when we're looking at these maps, this is all based on this definition of what the normal temperature or precipitation might be. So for this particular one, what we're saying is there's a higher probability that the temperature or precipitation for the upcoming month will land somewhere in the cooler part of the historical record. So really the outlooks are including everything from like a bit cooler to a lot cooler than average. But the probabilities here don't distinguish the actual values. But what we're showing is that we do think that it will be in general cooler than average and wetter than average for the upcoming month.
Perfect. Okay, that explains it. Yeah.
Okay, so if we then move on to the seasonal outlook. All right, so the seasonal outlook up now, and the seasonal outlook is for February, March, April. And you can see actually some similar patterns to what we saw in the monthly outlook. So this is still showing that much of Montana is forecast to have those below normal temperatures throughout the season, so February, March, April, as well as above normal precipitation. So potentially good news for those of you who love snow and cooler winters into spring. It does look like from our tools currently that we are expecting some below normal temperatures and above normal precipitation.
So in essence, what I interpret there is for those of you that kind of felt like you got cheated a little on not getting your typical Montana winter earlier in the year, you're going to get a longer winter later. So you're going to get paid back, it looks like to me, especially where we saw some of that probability a little higher for above precipitation for February. That starts to move a little west. So it kind of gives both sides of the state. Yeah. So that's really good news for our skiers and people that love to ski, which we got a ton of them out there, and the ski areas, which I know a lot of the owners of ski areas were going to definitely tune into this podcast. This is some good news for you, or potentially good news for you. Okay. So can we go out even further then?
Yes, we can. Can absolutely go out
All
further.
right. Well, what we're going to do while you're setting that up, we'll take one more quick break. And then when we come back, we'll show you a little further out and maybe get a little peek into later spring and summertime. So we'll do that right after this. Are you going to get out to your favorite ice fishing hole this year? Yeah, I know. Finding the time is always the hard part, isn't it? Well, Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer can help you get the things done that you have to do so you have time to do the things you want to do. How about clearing the driveway or work areas of snow? Yeah, that can be a time sucker for sure. Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer has just what you need. A huge selection of Boss snowplows and accessories that'll fit any truck or ATV even. Boss snowplows are flat amazing at removing snow fast. Or how about something that can serve you at both work and on your next adventure outdoors? Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer has awesome Diamond C utility trailers and accessories that can haul work equipment during the week and then your ATV or snowmobile or other awesome outdoor toys on the weekend. Of course, Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer also has an amazing service department with top technicians and parts pros that are ready to fix or replace whatever you need, from installing a new fifth wheel or gooseneck hitch, or even rewiring the lights on your trailer so they work the way they're supposed to. What about getting some other time-saving accessories for your truck installed? That, my friends, is for sure one of their specialties. And get this, Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer can even help with financing. Yeah, they've got you covered. This is going to be a great winter season, my friends, especially if you go see Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer. They're in Missoula at 5680 Expressway. You can call them at 406-549-4243 or check them out online at rmtte.com. That's Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer, rmtte.com. Get a hold of them today and then start planning that trip. Back here on the Montana Outdoor Podcast, and Johnna has been kind enough to really give us some incredible information here. And what I love about this is we're really getting a good visual on it too. So we were able to we got a good look at what next month's going to be. We got a good look at how we're going out even past April. So February, March, April. So now where do we go next? Can we go even further out? Looks like that's what we're looking at here.
We absolutely can go further out. So in the seasonal time frame, the forecasts do become a bit less reliable
Sure.
as we get to these longer leads. We're looking at, by the end of this, a year in advance. So these images that I'm showing, these are the seasonal temperature outlooks for March, April, May, June, July, and these go all the way out to February, March, April 2027. And we can also look at a very similar thing for precipitation. So this is, again, March, April, May, all the way through February, March, April 2027. So as we're getting, particularly with precipitation, as we're getting towards these longer leads or longer outlooks, we are getting less information from our tools, but we're also losing some of that skill that we have with the first couple outlooks.
Mhm.
So they get a bit less reliable as we go on through time. So slightly unfortunately for Montana, as we get into the March, April, May season, and I will just zoom in on this image here.
Okay.
You can see that Montana is actually all covered in white shading. What that means is that there was uncertainty over Montana in this particular forecast. So white shading is equal chances of above, near, or below normal temperatures or precipitation. And we typically indicate that when we have differences in tools that are not giving us confidence in any given category, when we know that we have possibly lower skill for a region. And in this case, we had a couple things happening. The first is that it's likely that the La Niña is going to wane towards the beginning of 2026 and get even weaker and transition to ENSO neutral. So that's going to give us some differences in what we expect for the forecast. In addition to that, even if there was a La Niña that was continuing, once we get into some of the spring and summer, a lot of the impacts get even more shaky. So we don't have quite as strong of impacts as we get into the spring and summer months. So typically that leads to less confidence in some of the forecasts in general.
So just a quick question here. So when
Sure.
you say ENSO neutral, that means it's not La Niña and it's not El Nino. So we
Exactly.
don't know. And so this kind of tells us, which we're used to in Montana. If you don't like the weather, just give it 5 minutes and it'll change. So this shows us that we're not quite sure where we're going to be, because as we get into summer, of course, then we shift to, okay, are we going to have enough moisture for crops? And then when you get on the west side of the state, are we going to have forest fires? So, okay.
Yeah. So for the next couple seasons, and if we zoom back out, you can see a lot of Montana is covered in that white shading, which indicates that we do have equal chances of above, near, below normal temperatures of precipitation. So a bit more uncertainty as we get into the next few seasons. As we get more into summer, you can see this red shading start to creep in
Right.
over Montana and over the northern tier of the U.S. in general.
And what is the red shading indicating?
The red shading's indicating chances of above normal temperatures.
Okay. So as we get into, let's see where your arrow is there, just below. So those are what month is the one on the far left below
This
where
one?
we right there? Yeah. What
This
months are we?
is June, July, August. This
Okay.
is July, August, September. This is August, September, October, and this is September, October, November.
Okay. So this is where this snowpack and above normal precipitation is going to come in handy, because hopefully then throughout from February on in through to April, we're banking some snowpack that's going to help us, because it looks like we're going to get pretty dry as the summer goes.
Yeah, so with the summer, it looks like you're going to get warmer temperatures. Again, noting that, as we go out further and further in time, the forecasts do begin to get more difficult to make. But we also see that if we take a look at precipitation, there are a few seasons where we do have brown shading, which indicates probability of below normal precipitation. So starting in about April, May, June, July, June, July, August, July, August, September, we do have some chances of below normal precipitation over the state.
Mhm. So for some of the eastern side of Montana that has had some drought conditions for quite a while, doesn't look like that's going to help a little. But however, we did get it. We will probably have a wetter spring, so we might help balance some of this out, is what I'm saying. Thinking.
Yeah.
Am I right there?
Let's hope, yes.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's
And
interesting.
for any of these outlooks, my recommendation would be to check the season before, the month before, which will show you the most updated outlook. And you can find all of that information on our website, as I was noting. So all of the official forecasts are really easy to find if you just go to our website, click on 3-month outlook, and then you can see all of the outlooks all the way out to a year for temperature and precipitation.
So what this means, folks, is that we have lower abilities to get a super accurate prediction, but you can keep up on it. So as we get closer into those months, now you're going to see a better, higher probability of what it's going to be. So yeah, so the links to this area of the website that I'm going to put in the podcast description, save those, because that's going to help you a lot now to kind of keep up with this and see how it's morphing and changing or not. Right? Am I correct on that?
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly.
I like it. Well, this has been great information. So, as we go on into the fall and all that, we're just what I'm seeing so far. Of course, again, you're getting way out there. A little hard to predict. We're looking at some drier, warmer than usual temperatures.
Yeah, so if you're going through summer into maybe early fall, looks like drier and possibly warmer. As we get even further into the time period, so this is now going into winter of this year and into early 2027. We're going back into those equal chances of above, near, and below normal temperatures. And for precipitation, we actually start with the equal chances in about August, September, October, 2026. And that continues for much of the remainder of the year and into early 2027. So we are a bit uncertain as we're getting into some of those longer term precipitation forecasts for.
So as
Janna.
we look at next winter, that's pretty hard for you to tell if we're going to be in La Niña or El Nino or neutral.
Yeah, so that's a really interesting question. So this is the most recent forecast of the El Nino Southern Oscillation phase from the CBC. So what you're seeing here is a bunch of bars. And what this is showing is the probability that, if you remember when I showed earlier in the podcast, those sea surface temperatures in the equatorial Pacific that are warmer or colder than average. This is showing the probability that those SSTs or sea surface temperatures will be warmer or colder than average in a given season. So what's interesting here is you see blue bars, gray bars, and red bars. The blue bars indicate the probability of a La Nina. The gray bars indicate the probability of neutral, so neither a La Nina or an El Nino. And then the red bars indicate the probability of an El Nino, so the warmer sea surface temperatures. In this forecast, these values across the bottom, or letters across the bottom, DJF means December, January, February, and ASO means August, September, October. So
Got it. Okay.
they're the 3-letter abbreviations for the season that we're looking at. So, for example, FMA means February, March, April. So anywhere where you see the gray bars higher means that we have better chances of neutral. So neither a La Nina or an El Nino. And you can actually see that that's kind of interesting because we are still talking about a La Nina in the beginning of 2026. And I noted that for the outlooks. So it looks like it's going to wane throughout the upcoming couple seasons. But like I said earlier, just like it's not a switch that we get those impacts as soon as La Nina turns on, it's not like a switch that we stop getting impacts as soon as La Nina turns off. So just like the atmosphere can take a little bit to catch up to when you have a La Nina, it can also take a little bit to catch up to when you don't have a La Nina. So we still do, for at least a season, still expect some of those impacts of a La Nina, even if we're seeing it start to wane or get weaker. This is actually December, January, February, like the beginning of this year and the end of last year, so 2025 into 2026. So we're seeing we're still seeing that La Nina, and this is going into February. But what you want to look at here is this later part of this forecast. So this is August, September, October, into the end of 2026. And you can see the red bars get higher than the blue or gray bars. And what that's showing is that there are currently better chances of an El Nino forming in August, towards the summer and fall in 2026.
Gotcha.
Right now, that's still a bit uncertain. It's far out. It's not something that we would take into consideration necessarily for the forecast yet, because we want to see how things go throughout the upcoming few seasons. But right now, the forecast is for better chances of an El Nino than a neutral or a La Nina as we get into the summer and fall of 2026.
Okay, so on the left side of the chart's kind of where we're at now, going to the right side of the chart, that is where we're going to end up for now. Now that, of course, can change. And again, if you go back to that link that I'll have in the podcast description, that's going to help you get caught up and see where it's trending. So then when you are developing these outlooks, then do you kind of amend those as you go along, I assume?
Yes, we do. As we're getting more confidence in the phase of the El Nino Southern Oscillation, or what could be happening with some of the other phases of the atmosphere, and so it's not the only one that happens, then we amend things as we go.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, you've answered, I think, most all of my questions, and in great detail, which is awesome. Now I'm sure I'll get some emails and things like that of questions and that, and I'll try to check back with you if we get any questions I can't answer, and try to get those answers for our viewers, and they can I'll email them back and let them know. So this has been awesome information, Johnna. Thank you very much. Anything else that you want to share with us before we go?
I don't think so. Just take a look at our website if you want to see some of these longer term forecasts. One great place to look if you are interested in snow is our hazards forecast, which can be found on our main page. And this will show you the chances of there being heavy snow for any given region. And this is yesterday's forecast. This will be updated today. But we do have a slight risk of heavy snow over parts of Montana for January 23rd through 26th.
Awesome.
So,
yeah. Okay. Well, great. So folks, when you go to our podcast description, look for these links, and I'll have those in those, and that should allow you to keep up on this. And this is going to give me some good tools. So when you're listening to us every Saturday morning, hopefully I'll be able to sound like a little bit more like I know what I'm doing. It's interesting. I just use you guys in your forecasts and all that, but I always get blamed on whatever the weather is. Does that do you ever get that kind of feedback, or are you far enough back behind the scenes that nobody picks on you about stuff like that?
no, we still get feedback.
Okay. Yeah. I get to blame when it's not good, and then when it turns out good, then they say, "Oh, you got lucky." So yeah. All right. Well, Johnna, thank you very much for your time, for this incredible information, and for you and the whole gang there back in Maryland. Thank you for what you do. This is what keeps us in the know and helps our farmers and all of us. So, and last question for you. I remember asking this to Matt too. As your technology goes, I mean, are you seeing where you guys are able to get even more accurate as you longer term? Has the technology gotten better? Like, for example, in fishing, we're now into these forward-facing sonar stuff and all that. That's been just an incredible tool for fishing. Do you have the same kind of things where your technology is getting better and better?
Yeah, one of the big things that's helpful is actually computing advances. So the globe is really complex.
Yeah.
And what happens over the globe is really complex. So if you took a very simple mathematical model and you tried to use that to look at what is happening over the globe, you have to make a lot of assumptions. But as we're getting more and more and more and more powerful computers, that allows us to make more and more and more and more and more complex mathematical models.
Is AI a big help to you guys now? Is that entering your world of helping you with probabilities and that, or no?
So AI is definitely something that we're looking into, something that we want to get more into in the upcoming year, and something that we've been starting to integrate into our forecast. So yes, definitely.
Yeah, it's changing the world. All right, Johnna, thank you very much for your information, for everything you guys do. And don't be a stranger. Hopefully you'll come back on the podcast again with us sometime.
Sure, definitely. I would love to come back on. This was fun.
That is awesome. Okay. All right, Janna Infanti, thank you very much. And there you have it, folks. That is what we're looking at. And I hope this answered a lot of your questions. So far from what I was looking at your questions before we started this podcast and now ending, we covered a lot of what you wanted to know. And if we didn't get it, be sure and email me and let me know, and we'll get those questions answered for you. Until we talk again, folks, be safe out there, be good to each other, and we'll see you next time on the Montana Outdoor Podcast.
Thanks for watching the Montana Outdoor Podcast. You know, there's no way we could do this podcast without the incredible support of sponsors like Superior Hardwoods of Montana. home of the largest selection of in-stock, high-end wood products and flooring in the western United States. Let them guide you through the woods at superior-hardwoods.com. And of course, Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer in Missoula, home of Boss snowplows and accessories, and Diamond Sea Trailers and accessories. Go see them on the web at rmtte.com. We'd love to hear what you thought of this week's podcast. When you get a minute or two, shoot us an email and tell us your thoughts. Same goes if you have any questions for Rigger or this week's guest. Just send your questions or comments to downrigger@montanooutdoor.com. Hey, don't forget we should be dropping a new podcast this next Saturday. Until then, gang, we hope to see you soon out in Montana's great outdoors.